Welcome to the Private Practice Startup, where we inspire you from startup to mastery. We chat with entrepreneurs, experts in the mental health and business arenas, and successful private practitioners to give you the tools needed to make your dream practice a reality. Visit theprivatepracticestartup.com for awesome resources, free trainings, and so much more. Here are your hosts, Dr. Kate Campbell and Katie Lemieux.
Hello again, Startup Nation. We are back with another awesome episode of the Private Practice Startup Podcast. We're actually doing a part 2 in our 2-part series. Katie's here today with me, Katie Lemieux, and I'm your co-host, Dr. Kate Campbell. We're going to be talking about the second part to private practice, #ninja tips, tricks, and hacks. So today we're going to be focusing on money mindset and marketing. And before we get there, we just wanted to take a moment to say thank you so much to Startup Nation. If this is the first time that you're listening to our podcast, awesome. Welcome. We hope you find tremendous value in all of our value bombs, ninja tips, good tricks that we share about building your private practice. And we look forward to inspiring you along that journey from startup to mastery. Make sure you visit our resources tab on our website at theprivatepracticestartup.com. And there you'll be able to download a special gift that we have for you. That's the A to Z cheat sheet, the essentials for building the private practice of your dreams. So make sure you download that. And if you are a return listener, awesome. We welcome you back as well. And we want to make sure that you guys are definitely a part of our exclusive Facebook group. We have private practitioners from around the globe, as well as a lot of other professionals who support private practitioners. And we share tons of valuable information about building and growing your dream private practice there. So I guess let's go ahead and get started. Part 1, we talked about some of the traditional questions that we typically ask our guests. And because you just have Katie and I on the show here with you today, we answered those questions. If you want to listen more in on that, definitely check out part 1.
Well, check it out anyways.
Yeah, of course.
We talked about branding, goal planning, and lifestyle business, gave lots of great information as well as resources. So check out the show notes page for that because there's a ton of stuff we had mentioned.
Yeah, there's a pretty much like a bucket full of resources in there. I think we listed double digits for sure. Yeah, tons of value for you guys. So we just love, really supporting you along your journey. So today we're going to be talking about money mindset, really exploring your relationship with money and how that can impact your private practice journey.
How it can impact it sure does. So, I'll get started. So I grew up in the world of community mental health. I'm actually from Connecticut and I moved down to Florida. That's where we're based out of South Florida to go to graduate school. And so I think I was 22, 23 at the time, maybe. And so I moved down here, went to graduate school, and I got a job in community mental health because I had to, I was on my own and had to support myself. My first job was $24,000. I don't know if I'll tell you when that was because then you'll do the math and know how old I am. No, that's okay. That was back in 2001. So yeah, it was $24,000 and I was a case manager in community mental health. I had worked in community mental health for about 11 years, really growing up in community mental health. And the cool thing is as I was experiencing the profession, I was going to school. So it really solidified my learning. I realized quickly on that I did not want to be doing in-home services for a long time. And so, I had actually went into management at the young age of 26. So it took me a while to get my license because I did part-time therapy, but full-time management and leadership. And, in community mental health, you're given a lot of messages around money, right? And so the majority of our clients had Medicaid or, it was very low cost. And so, I'm sure many of you have grown up in the belief of, therapists don't. Exactly. You just finished my sentences. Therapists don't make money. Why go into this profession? Therapists don't make money. And that's totally untrue.
And then even saying therapists aren't in this field to make money.
Or that's
kind
another
of shaming you for even wanting to
desire to make money in the field.
Absolutely.
For sure. And that feels icky, right?
It does. Yeah.
And it's funny as you say that, Kate, I remember, going into private practice, even for a long time, that whole money transaction, right? When you're taking payment for your client, it almost felt like really dirty to me. Like I was a prostitute or something. Like legit, I know, right? Because it was like we just had this really intimate encounter and I'm like,
okay,
hey, like that's bizarre. It was so uncomfortable. But coming from the world of community mental health is I had to do a lot of work around my own money mindset. And of course, growing up, our experiences also affect that. So I have had to do a lot of that. And I still am today because I've kind of plateaued. And so I want to reach a new level. And actually, if you guys head over to our resources tab on the Private Practice Startup, you will find that we have a page called Must Read Books. there are several, I think about 6 must-read books about money. I think I have read all of them. And this is really important. So really knowing your value and your worth is essential. Now, I get it. You might have started in private practice, and I know that I charge, I think, $80 initially. I currently charge $165, and I feel pretty comfortable with that. I used to take a sliding scale. I don't do that anymore, but it really took me some time to work my way up to where I am. What about you, Kate?
I always knew I wanted to be in private practice and that I wanted to create a group private practice, because for private practitioners, it could be kind of isolative when it's just you're seeing your clients and that sort of a thing. So I always had this vision of creating a group practice where other practitioners could come and specialize in different areas, and I would choose people who were very collaborative and passionate and all of that stuff. But when I first started out, I wasn't in a place to launch a group private practice. When I graduated with my master's, I knew I needed to work on getting enough hours for licensure. And I knew that jumping right into private practice, that would make it really challenging for me to do so. So I also started out in community mental health. I worked at an agency setting, making $14 an hour. Oh, yes. And that was really hard. You can't survive in South Florida. The cost of living down here is extremely expensive. So I was also getting my PhD. So I was working part-time in an agency, like 32 hours a week, getting paid $14 an hour. I was going to my PhD program at Nova down here in South Florida full-time. I was also waiting tables at night 3 times a week, sometimes 4.
I think I'm exhausted just listening. But my story is so exhausting. Very much the same.
It was so exhausting, but I always knew that it was temporary. I knew that it was a stepping stone. I knew I was not going to be in community mental health for long. And in community health, in the place where I was working, so many people were overworked, underpaid. They were struggling with burnout. They had a really negative attitude towards the field. And I felt like I was allergic to that environment, honestly. I remember sitting at my desk and being just, how am I going to be able to do this? I was so stressed out trying to make ends meet. And I actually said a prayer in that moment. And no joke, it was a few seconds later that my phone rang with another opportunity, which was a $25 an hour opportunity to work at a treatment program. And I accepted the opportunity, transitioned. So that helped me a little bit. I was able to cut down on the hours that I was working at the restaurant to try and make ends meet. But it was so hard. And I kept my eye on the prize, though. I knew that I wanted to go into private practice. I knew that that there was a lot of value in the education and training and this journey that I was going on to really specialize in the area of working with individuals and couples and helping them enhance their relationships. And so I also was in private practice a few hours a week during this whole journey. So before I actually launched my private practice full time, I was in private practice for about 5 years. I knew I wanted to wait till I graduated with my PhD, and I launched my practice the next month, my group practice. And that journey was really difficult. But once I got into the private practice and over the years, my fee has changed a lot too. I think I started off at about $80 as well, and even slid lower than that to work with a couple of clients.
Me too. I've slid to $40.
Yeah. And that's really tough. It really, really is. And so now my fee is, I actually charge $300 for the initial session for couples, which is a 90-minute session. And then I charge $200 for my 50-minute sessions. And I really see the value in my time and what I offer, but I didn't get there right away. It's a process of really building your confidence, building your specialization, building your brand, positioning yourself as an expert. And some of that gets into the marketing stuff, but you also want to make sure that you're doing your research and that you're not overpricing yourself in the marketplace. You're not underpricing yourself in the marketplace. You really want to actually do a search, a 5-mile radius from around the location that you are, wherever you are across the United States, across the globe. I know we've got some international listeners as well. So wherever your location is, do a 5-mile search and actually call therapists or look on their website. Sometimes they have their fee listed on their website to find out what they're charging in your area for master's level clinicians and what they're charging in your area for PhD doctorate level clinicians as well, because it's going to be a little bit different. And people who are specializing in your particular niche. If you are a sex therapist and there's not a lot of sex therapists in your area, you can charge a premium as long as you have the credentials and expertise to back it up. But you want to make sure that you're really doing that research before you're setting your fee.
And, this goes back to our first part 1 podcast in regards to branding. So when you're have branded yourself and you're really clear on your brand, it's a lot easier to sell yourself, value yourself, and also really, I think, touch a dollar amount. When I created the branding for my current company, my brand is to help couples and families communicate, connect, and create the relationships they long for and desire. And when you share that, people really get connected to it. And then, when I'm clear on how I deliver and how I talk to couples, they want to work with me. They're like, oh, that's interesting. That's cool. That's exactly what I'm looking for. So when you get clear on your branding and you're able to communicate that, people are really inspired. It's not saying, well, I work with individuals. Oh, okay. All right. Well, that's interesting because the other 3 therapists I call work with individuals. How do you discern yourself? What is your unique selling proposition or your USP? Do you have a certain style or do you, we had interviewed actually Clay Cockrell on episode 14 on online counseling. So part of his niche is online counseling, but Clay also started out and he niched himself as walk and talk therapy. He talks about going into Central Park in New York, and part of what he did, he would walk and talk. And that was his therapy thing. So that's a really cool niche to have. So you can brand yourself, you can brand your style, you can brand the population that you work with. There's many ways that you can brand, but that will also help set you apart in regards to money mindset.
We could talk about money mindset all day. We seriously could. And knowing your worth touches on a lot of different areas. It's not just knowing how much you're going to charge when your clients are actually in the room, but for no-shows and last-minute cancellations, your time is valuable. And making sure that you are comfortable with charging whatever your cancellation fee is. I know for me, I have a 24-hour cancellation fee, and unless there's an emergency that's happened that's out of somebody's control, I charge them. I hold them financially responsible for that time because I only see a limited amount of clients. I'm highly selective about my hours and who I bring on with my clientele because I have very limited time. And making sure that your clients are aware of that and that they know you value your time also teaches them to value your time as well. And it also translates into them valuing their own time with you even more.
It's interesting as you're talking about this, Kate, there's a story that I have with Kate. When I was actually charging $125, I also had a cancellation policy of like a one-time freebie type thing. So because I wasn't really clear with my boundaries, people took advantage of that. So I can't fully blame them. I have to blame myself too. And I was talking about this with Kate and she's like, you really need to change your cancellation policy. It just needs to be 24 hours
it was
flat.
Cringeworthy.
And so, you know what, guys, I actually decided to do the math on how much money I lost in 1 year. Do you know that I lost $10,000 in 1 year because of my cancellation policy? Like that was a hard lesson to learn.
Yeah.
But when I added up the numbers, the numbers don't lie. And so I got really clear, like $10,000 could be renovation of a new bathroom. It could be really an awesome 2-week vacation or many other things. So I quickly changed my policy, and just, reestablish that with my current clients, but then also my clients coming in is reestablishing it with them. Does that mean that people don't cancel less than 24 hours? Of course it does, but it's really our job to uphold and like Kate said, is really value your time. I know with having a full-time private practice and the private practice startup being its own full-time business, time is really of the essence. So it's really important to be able to value your time and yourself. One of the books that I really like in that must-read book list is The Energy of Money. It's actually by a psychologist, and it actually walks you through a whole bunch of different activities to explore your relationship with money. Dr. Eva Brown, who actually we did a podcast with, and she did her dissertation around money. She's podcast episode 40. You might want to check that out as well to really examine your relationship with money. So are you guys ready to jump into marketing?
Marketing. And what reaction do you have to hearing the word marketing? I wonder what they're experiencing on the other end.
I don't know. And I wonder if the percentage is like negative, positive, what the ratio is.
We love marketing.
We do.
We love branding.
But I really have to say it wasn't
always that way.
Yeah, not at all.
We had to really transform the way we thought about marketing and really change our relationship with it because modern marketing is so different than what it used to be,
Right. For sure. And I mean, even from several years ago, and Kate and I invest a lot of time and energy in learning about marketing. We follow The Digital Marketer. That's one of the podcasts. I love Gary Vaynerchuk. I just finished reading his book, Jab, 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 Right Hook, where he talks about how to market on social media. And one of the difficult things I think for therapists in regards to marketing, especially if you're coming out of school, you have an academic voice, right? So it's professional, it's research-based. It can be a little boring. Just saying, totally respect my academicians, if that's a word. But And we're also taught in school to really have professional boundaries. Well, people really want to know who you are. People want to be entertained. They want to connect. They want to know you're a real person. So modern day marketing is so, so different. It's important to be able to share stories. Actually, April Andell, who was one of our very first volunteers at the Private Practice Startup, I've really enjoyed looking and watching how she has completely flourished and how she markets and the content and how personal she gets in regards to her own self-care and why it's important. And she tells stories. And she's actually one of the newsletters that I read consistently. So, it's so important to be able to do that.
It is. And that's something that a lot of therapists struggle with because they're taught in grad school to be professional and to have firm boundaries and be very rigid about that and not self-disclose. But when it comes to marketing, your clients and your future prospective clients are going to want to know what it's like to work with you. They're going to want to see your personality. They're going to want to know, what your style is and what to expect. And when you're marketing yourself, it'd be good for us to think about both marketing online and marketing in the community. So first, let's talk about the community marketing. When you think about community marketing, first thing for me that comes to mind is building relationships with people and networking. Right. And
kind of like face-to-face relationships.
Yep. Face-to-face, you're going to different events. You might be visiting doctor's offices or potential referral sources who would be good referral sources for your ideal clients, like gynecologist or school settings or primary care physician, psychiatrist.
Or maybe you work with maybe like chronic medical issues. Maybe a personal injury attorney might be a great referral source for you. And it's all about building relationships. Please don't try to go in and sell yourself. Spend some time getting to know them. What are their interests? I love the phrase, be interested, not interesting. So what that kind of means is, we already possess this as therapists, as we kind of shut up and listen. We ask questions, we engage. So a lot of the skills that we have are totally transferable to business.
Yeah, there's nothing more of a turnoff than someone who is doing the business card pushing. That just drives me nuts.
And it's not even the business card pushing nowadays, is I find this on LinkedIn. I don't know how many of you guys, I just got another thing today, like how they want me to look at their stuff and check this out. And it's like, they're not building a relationship. They're just pushing their stuff on me, not even knowing if I need it. And that's so frustrating. That's an instant delete out of my email box. Yeah. But if someone had said, hey, I looked at your profile, or, tell me about this private practice startup thing. That sounds so interesting. I want to know more. I'm kind of in the field too, but tell me more about you. That would be a way better lead in than trying to push your e-course or your book or your product or your service.
It's amazing how powerful your relationships can be with different stakeholders in the community, because all you need is to develop one or two really good relationships with doctors or potential referral sources, and that can fill your practice in addition to the online marketing methods that we'll get to in a few minutes. And one of our intern extraordinaires, Erica Garrett, she actually did a podcast with us about networking. And she has really interesting perspectives on kind of transforming the experience of networking. And that's podcast episode 16. I know for me, I could be more of a little bit of an introvert, and I have to push myself to step out, and I can step into that extrovert persona and connect with people. I'm much better on a one-to-one basis or smaller groups. It could be very draining for me to go to a big, massive networking event, or even intimidating. But when you focus on breaking it down and just building a relationship with somebody and using your natural skills as a therapist to connect, it makes it so much easier. So let's shift into online marketing.
Great. So there's so much that goes into online marketing. I think massive. We could do like 20 podcasts on online marketing.
Yeah, we totally could.
But it's the same in regards to building relationships. So, Gary Vaynerchuk talks about entertaining people, sharing a story, making something funny. People want to be entertained. They want to see your personality. They want to connect with you. And that's really super essential. We have so much stuff on marketing. I don't know. Where do we want to start?
First things first, you really want to have a good website. You want to have a mobile-friendly, responsive website. Mobile friendly, that means it's going to look well on your mobile device, because most people are they're scrolling on their phones. It's all about instant gratification nowadays. People are Googling therapists when they can't sleep at night. They may be doing that from their phone because they don't want to get out of bed or whatever. So you want to make sure you have a mobile friendly, well-designed, responsive website with content that speaks to your ideal clients. You want to think about what is keeping your ideal clients up at night. What are their pain points? What are their struggles? What are their needs? And we have so many different resources to share with you guys about different podcasts that we've had. So listen in if you're interested about websites and you really kind of want to revamp that aspect or just make sure you're going about it in the right way, Daniel Fava, he is our website guy. We love him. He's fantastic. He does a great job. And we actually interviewed him on podcast episode 30.
And we also have Cat Love. They have empathy sites as well as catlove.com. So you want to check out Cat Love and empathy sites there. And that is episode 17. We also have Perry Rosenbloom, episode 43. Perry is the owner and creator of Brighter Vision. Awesome. Awesome. I wish they were around when I got started. Oh my gosh. You should have seen our first websites. I don't even know if we have pictures of that from way back when. And then actually Jeff Gunther, who is a therapist, and it was at Oregon or Washington?
I think it's in Oregon.
He's all the way over. We're like way down southeast. He's like way up northwest. So wherever he is, Jeff also specializes in SEO. So that is essential for the website. But your website, Oregon? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So your website should be pretty dynamic and interesting and inviting. And that's really essential because, your website's really like your online resume, if you will.
And speaking of online resumes and websites, social media is another way of really having your voice out there and sharing your personality. And a lot of times people are going to Facebook just to check in and look for people, look for businesses. It's almost like a second website. So making sure that you're getting on the proper platforms, social media wise, where your ideal clients are going to be. And Jessica Jefferson, our marketing intern extraordinaire,
I think her episode is episode 5. She actually has a episode on social media. And we actually recently just did an online course with her on social media and what platforms are appropriate for your ideal client. So one of the important things in regards to online marketing, so when we talk about a website, and guys, there's just so much to talk about. I mean, we could, like I said, talk about this for days, but let's just go back to the website for a second. So you want to make sure that your website has analytics. What in the world is that? Guys, I know we're therapists, but we either need to hire, outsource someone. If you listen to part 1, we had talked about that. In regards to analytics, analytics is all the tracking and the measuring of who's coming on the site, how long they're staying, if you have a broken link. This is really essential because you really want to know what is happening behind the scenes. One thing I had mentioned before in my own marketing is Kate and I actually both do Google AdWords. And actually our AdWords are set up in a very specific way. My AdWords only show when I'm actually available to answer the call. I don't create AdWords or pay for AdWords on the weekend because I don't want to be working on the weekend. So it's very specific and structured, and assuring that you are actually working with someone who can help you is essential. And really looking at this information. You want to actually look at the information and utilize it. I think a lot of therapists, because they're so overwhelmed with so many tasks, they really want to deliver great services. But in order to actually have those clients in your practice, these things drive business your way.
So there's lots of ways to be creative with marketing online. You can write blogs, you can do video blogs. Ernesto Segismundo is awesome with the video blogging and Facebook Lives and really getting out there and sharing your voice and being authentic and showing people who you are so that they're attracted to want to work with you. And it's not about being perfect, guys. Nobody's perfect. Actually, clients are more attracted to our imperfections and our realness. So when they see us and they can connect with us visually, it's very powerful. His episode is number 29 in our podcast. And so that's a great resource for you guys. Even podcasting like we're doing now, creating a podcast and having that specifically focused on an area that you work with and providing tons of value, positioning yourself as an expert. That's a great way of putting yourself out there.
Kate mentioned the podcasting. Kate and I are part of a group called Healthcasters, and it's for wellness professionals. It's actually through Melvin from Selling the Couch. And a lot of people say that clients are finding them through their podcast. And what a great way, if you are working with clients and your podcast is based off your niche, is you can say, hey, listen to my podcast for further information and episode blah, blah, blah about blah, blah, blah. It's a great way to add value. It's a great way to still be connected to your clients and give them information and resources. And guess what? They can tell their friends without saying, hey, I'm seeing a therapist, but I found this really interesting podcast. It's something that we were talking about how to manage stress. Check it out. What a cool way to just be out there.
Yep. So you can write newsletters. I mean, there's just so many different ways to be creative. We could talk about marketing for an entire week and still not be done talking about marketing. We're so passionate about it.
And that's the thing. I mean, there's so much to talk about. We just wanted to give you guys a few quick tips, ideas, thoughts, things to consider. We're going to be talking about marketing in the future. We're always going to be talking about marketing. But for today, we wanted to share some of this stuff with you. Another awesome podcast we did, and we talked about social media marketing, is Lisa Wozniak. Her her podcast is on social media, episode 34. Lisa, I don't know, she's just a great person all around. She's a lot of fun to hang out with, be with. Definitely check out her podcast on social media. And I think we had done another one also with Kimball Stadler, early on in the beginning. That was either like
I think it's
2?
Yeah, I think it's episode 2.
So there's another one on social media. But guys, I wish we had more time. I mean, this podcast, I think, would be like 5 hours if we had talked about marketing the whole time. So we're going to kind of close it down and say goodbye from here until we meet you guys again. So what we want to make sure that you guys get away from our messages in part 1 and part 2 is that, creating a business takes a while. There's a lot of aspects to it. Don't give up. Stay in the game. Stay connected to us. It is essential to really create your brand, get clear on marketing, create your goals, really finding a mentor, a coach, creating a plan, and really staying on course on your plan until you achieve success.
The support is so important. It really is. But it's, to just break it down and take one step at a time. If you're doing one small thing a day, those things are going to add up, because when you look at the whole picture, it can kind of be paralyzing and overwhelming, because we're throwing a lot of different ideas at you, a lot of different resources, which is great. And we just want to make sure that you're just focused on one thing at a time. All those small steps add up. Stay connected to us. We've got a ton of great resources for you. Even Jessica Jefferson, who did our podcast number 7. She's episode 7.
7, not 5.
Yep.
Okay.
She's 7, not 5. Amanda Patterson, she focused on social media as well. She's episode 5. But Jessica Jefferson offers the social media coaching as well for therapists who really want to expand and make sure they're optimizing that, because the marketing world is ever changing. It's always evolving, and we're here as a resource for you. So let us know how we can support you from startup to mastery.
So everybody, thanks so much for hanging with us today. We hope that you enjoyed part 2. Check out part 1 if you haven't already, or vice versa, whatever. And definitely check out our show notes. Again, I know we mentioned a whole bunch of resources, so they will be there for the links from today's show. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. Share with your friends and fellow colleagues. We hope you have a fantastic day, and we look forward to continuing to inspire you from startup to mastery.
Bye, guys. Thanks for joining us on The Private Practice Startup. Visit theprivatepracticestartup.com for awesome resources, free trainings, attorney-approved private practice paperwork, and so much more.